Howdy, sports fans. I'm Hannah Barton. Brenden Schaeffer is with me, and we're previewing the 2025 Vanderbilt Commodores today. And the big question is if Vanderbilt can build off of that surprise success we saw from them last season, Brenden. Obviously, that big upset against Alabama went ahead and made it to a bowl game win. And as we've been talking about this SEC schedule for each of our teams, Vanderbilt has turned into well, you've got the Vanderbilt game at least to get a win into. Okay, maybe there's a chance there that, it may not be the gimme that it was maybe a year or two ago.
100%. It's going to be an interesting season for Vandy because they really made a name for themselves last year, and Diego Pavia was a big reason for that. He is such a personality, and really, I think exactly what Vanderbilt football needed to kind of say, hey, we know the way that we are perceived in this conference. Y'all don't pay attention to us. That's fine. Diego Pavia is out talking on national shows saying we're winning a national championship this year. Deal with it. Whether that comes to fruition or not, I do really enjoy the persona and the gravitas that he's brought to Vanderbilt. You know what? When you beat Alabama, you kind of have already backed it up. And so I think he's earned the ability to talk a little bit. The question, though, of course, is going to be as you drill down on what their schedule looks like and what they're capable of bringing to the table in 2025 in a conference where, yeah, most teams are viewing the Vandy game still to this day as the bye week in the conference. You can't afford to do that anymore, but that doesn't mean their schedule is going to be anything that is very easy when they're facing a gauntlet in the SEC.
The offense going to be led by Diego Pavia once again off after that lawsuit against the NCAA, able to get that extra year of eligibility. So he just loves putting himself in the spotlight, doing things differently. And like you said, I think that's what I'm missing is someone that's a little bit more on the edge than maybe we're used to seeing from the Commodores. But I mean, he had a great season last year, threw for 2,200 yards over that, 20 touchdowns, rushed for 800 and 8 touchdowns as well. And not only is he returning, but they've got a player in tight end, Eli Stowers. He's back. Many thought he was going to go to the draft, all SEC tight end, but he's back. Pavia's back. And the question is that going to be enough to have a high-powered offense for Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think it can certainly be an offense that's going to have its moments. They're gonna pick somebody off that's not expecting it, similar to how it happened against Alabama last year. And Diego Pavia is probably going to be the reason. Eli Stowers, well, that's not going to hurt matters because he is a really, really talented player. They have the running back from last year returning as well. He wasn't overly productive, but there's some continuity in this system as well. So that can help. What did they get on the outside? Because I just feel like last year you didn't quite get enough out of that group of wide receivers to consistently be able to support what Diego Pavia is capable of being. And frankly, on the defense, they've got to improve on that side of the ball as well. They ranked 86th in yards per game. One of maybe one SEC team to give up more than 400 yards. Yeah, I think they were at basically, other than Mississippi State, the bottom of the conference in yards per game defensively. So that is going to have to be an area where you improve. They're not recruiting the athletes on the side of the ball on defense that LSU is recruiting. They're not recruiting the athletes that Georgia's recruiting. So, that's going to be a bit of a challenge. I think if Vandy's going to have the season that it wants to have, it's going to be a lot of Diego Pavia, and the consistency of his play will be what has to carry them a long way.
Another question mark is how much did Vanderbilt's efforts to rebuild in the portal for that offensive line pay off in terms of protecting Diego Pavia, making sure that he's got what he needs to be able to be Diego Pavia, essentially. We know that he's not going to have many weapons other than Stowers, but is this line going to be able to protect him? And we know that he has no problem putting himself on the line, but you don't want your quarterback doing that day in and day out. So is this line going to be enough? And like you said, are they going to have what they need on it from a defensive standpoint? We know that their defensive line is deeper than we've seen for Vanderbilt. Doesn't necessarily mean it's super deep, but it's deeper than they've seen in the past. And of course, they've got Brenden who's the star of their defense. They can pretty much put him anywhere in the secondary. But like we said, the question is it going to be enough to be able to let Diego Pavia do what he needs to do to keep Vanderbilt relevant in the conversation?
Yeah, and you mentioned the portal. They had so their ranking according to 24/7 Sports was 36th in terms of their transfer portal class that they brought in. And it's at the point in college football where, yeah, we do that because so many teams are having so many transfers that not only do you have annually the high school rankings of your recruiting class, you've got a portal class ranking as well. 36 in the country. Not bad for Vanderbilt. But it's basically bottom of the SEC, 14th, 15th in the SEC in terms of the recruiting ranking through the portal. Yeah, they've got talent. The talent is just not going to quite be on paper up to par with what is going to exist everywhere else. I think one edge to this team could be their head coach, Clark Lee. Like, you take that Vanderbilt job, it is going to be a role in which you are overlooked. You're not expected to do much. And he is trying to give an identity to this program. And again, he's had the quarterback last year that was able to help him do it. We'll see if they can take a step forward, Hanna. It's just one of those situations where they are going to be up against the 8 ball. Like, as we do all these previews, sometimes I feel like we're talking about teams and I'm going, man, I'm really high on that team. Man, I'm high on that team too. Inevitably, somebody's got to be losing all these games. And I feel as though we've done a lot of previews where I've kind of looked at the Vandy game for most of these conference opponents and gone, all right, that'll be kind of a win. That's the Vandy game. In fairness, we have to look at the other side of it and go, can Vanderbilt try to scrape out a few of these wins to be able to not just get bowl eligible? Like, they want to do more than that. I know Pavia says we're winning the Natty, and that's the culture he wants to establish. But, like, would it be a huge step forward for Vandy to win 8-9 games and continue to kind of announce itself, maybe gradually move its way toward that college football playoff conversation? You got to start somewhere. It's just going to be very difficult to do as we kind of get into the schedule for this team.
Yeah, they say you got to crawl before you walk before you run. The question is, what's Vanderbilt going to do this season? We'll have a better idea as we take a closer look at that schedule.
Yeah, let's get into it, because this is a schedule that, of course, it's an SEC schedule, Hanna, so it's going to be tough, but I don't know. I want so well for Pavia to be right that Vandy has a big season, but what's kind of your first impressions looking at the schedule?
Well, you got 2 games where Charleston Southern hosting at home. It's going to be a good one to kind of get their feet wet. I think that's one that we can look at and say it's going to be a win. I think Virginia Tech on the road is going to be one that will maybe provide them a lot more of a challenge than week 1. We don't really know exactly what we're going to see from Virginia Tech yet. And then you go to South Carolina. So that's 2 back-to-back road games right there.
It is, but there's one thing that we cannot overlook on this schedule, and that's Georgia State. Because last year, Vanderbilt didn't beat Georgia State. And like we talked about it being a real revelatory season for the Commodores, but you've got to beat Georgia State. Like, you got to clean up those games. And normally when we're looking at an SEC schedule and we kind of gloss over the non-con and we say, okay, that'll be a win, Vanderbilt can't gloss over Georgia State this year. They put up 32 points in that game a year ago. They gave up 36. Remember what I said about the defense? It has got to show improvement in terms of the consistency, because you're not necessarily going to be able to shoot out every single team. It'll work sometimes. But yeah, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, that's all well and good. Vanderbilt, what do we say? Crawl before you walk. You got to start by making sure you clean up the games like a Georgia State and even that Utah State game as well. Because if you're still fiddling around with the non-con opponents, I don't really like what's coming thereafter in the conference slate.
No, it's definitely a tough schedule. I mean, going to Alabama, you get to host LSU, but it's still hosting LSU, hosting Missouri. You go to Texas, then you've got Auburn, Kentucky, go to Tennessee. I mean, the only ones I'm really looking at where it's like, all right, Vanderbilt definitely has a solid chance of getting that conference win is that Kentucky game at home.
That one's one that I think is a must win, actually, for Vanderbilt, because you know what? If Mark Stoops goes over in the conference this year, and we'll still have to do that Kentucky preview, it wouldn't shock me. I'm very concerned about what we could see for the Wildcats this year. It just doesn't feel like the program has the momentum that it needs. Vanderbilt has some momentum right now. You got to capitalize on it. So as I'm looking at this schedule, what's crazy, again, national championship. That's what Pavia says. 5.5 is the DraftKings win total for this team at DraftKings Sportsbook. And it's plus 135 odds on over, which basically means they are an underdog, according to the betting community, to make a bowl game this year. That being said, Charleston Southern, Georgia State, Utah State. I need to be able to count those as wins, Vanderbilt, if we're going to take you serious. So we're going to do that. Kentucky, I'm going to count you as a victory. Vandy as the winner in that game. Do you see anywhere else that they could win games other than, like, obviously they just beat Alabama, so we can't count them out of any game, but we also realistically aren't going to expect very much more of that going forward. I see a couple, but not many. Is there any of these conference games that stands out for you where you go, hey, Vanderbilt, you know what? If you get those 4 and then we can circle these few, that's how you can maybe carve out a path to a winning season?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Auburn game. I mean, you're playing it
Yep.
at home, and out of these SEC opponents that they are, because I think it's going to be a home game, most likely. I mean, I don't see this team going to Alabama, to South Carolina, to Texas, or to Tennessee and getting an
No.
upset win. I mean, Tennessee, you never know. It is a rivalry game, but I'm looking at that
Yeah.
Auburn game as their chance to get another SEC win that could be pivotal because we don't necessarily know what we're going to see from Auburn. I mean, from everything that is coming out of the Auburn camp the past few weeks, it seems like they're not feeling too confident between saying that you're having the defense go easy on your quarterback in practice to now magically adding some national titles into the mix. To me, that says we're not feeling too confident about this season. And so that's a discussion for another time. But I'm looking at that Auburn game as a chance for Vanderbilt to get an SEC win under their belt. Like I said, I don't see an SEC road game being one that can pull up the upset unless maybe everything goes well for them. It could be Tennessee. I think they got to win that Virginia Tech game if they really want to kind of again continue to move forward from what we saw from them last season.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, okay, let's put on the optimist glasses and add Virginia Tech as a win, which means they clean up all four non-cons. What's really tough about this is I agree with you about Auburn and we talked about Kentucky. Those are the most favorable conference setups that they have because they play them at home. They're teams that didn't perform that well, at least last year. They happen at the end of the schedule. So for Vandy, you're going to have to find some confidence from somewhere even if you clean up the non-con. Really, as a Missouri grad, don't love it. But the only spot that you can make an argument is like you're hosting Missouri, and that's a team that it took your kicker missing a chip shot last year in double overtime for the Tigers to be able to beat you on their turf. That's going to be one where I think Vanderbilt's going to get up for it because they say, look, man, our schedule is a little bit it's tough when you get into a conference slate of Alabama, LSU, Missouri. Like, look, they're gonna take their shot at LSU. That game comes first. Maybe the benefit to Missouri is that if they LSU beats the brakes off Vandy, they might be a little bit down on their luck for the following game. But that's a game where like Missouri playing on the road last year was a problem. They just did not perform well in road environments. Outside of the South Carolina game where they played well and just didn't win, they had some real struggles away from their home environment. And so for Vandy, like that's one that if you're really having that mentality of national championship, you're looking at the Missouri game and saying that's one where that's a team that's coming off a 10-win season, and we need to be able to beat them at our place and defend our home turf. If they can get a game like that or somehow win the LSU, you come in to those kind of Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee stretch of your schedule going, there's maybe still 8 wins on the table. The Tennessee one's interesting as well. That's one where it benefits them for it to be the last game. The Auburn game, I wish it was earlier for Vandy because I think you win some non-con games. Maybe you swap it with South Carolina, which going on the road to the Gamecocks is just going to be very difficult. But if that was like home against Auburn and suddenly they're 4-1 or 5-0, you're like, oh, now we've got some momentum behind us. It's going to have to come from within. But Tennessee's quarterback situation is a mess. The Vols by the end of the season, if they don't live up to par, could be 7-4 going into that Vandy game, feeling like their season doesn't even matter anymore. So there's a realm in which like 7-8 wins, I could see it for Vanderbilt. Can I predict it is maybe a different question.
So where are you locking in your win total for Vanderbilt for this season then?
5.5 is that win total plus money on over. I'm going to say they beat Virginia Tech. That's going to be such a critical game for them to be able to get to this 6-win total. Because if you do that and you win the other non-cons, you only need to find 2 conference games. And I think they find Auburn and Kentucky. So I'm going to say over. I'm going to take the plus money bet. I'm going to take Diego Pavia only needing to make a bowl game just to win the wager. Give me Vanderbilt over 5.5, but I'm stopping there. That's where I cash out my chips. 6-6. They're going to make a bowl game. It won't be the national championship, but like the Gasparilla Bowl is fun too. So that's kind of what I am predicting for the Vandy season. But I don't think Pavia, like when you take that persona of I'm just going to talk and I'm going to talk and I'm going to talk some more, you got to be knowing that people are going to be coming for you and you got to have to find a way to back it up. To an extent, I think he will. 6-6 is not a season to sneeze at Vanderbilt. Let bowl game every single year become the standard, the foundation that you never stray from and build from there. They're going to have to do it with another quarterback because I don't think there's going to be another year of eligibility for Diego Pavia coming out of the woodwork this time. But I think they can at least make a bowl game this year, Hannah.
Yeah, I'm sure Pavia would have some things to say about just the Gasparilla Bowl. Obviously, he's national championship or bust. So
I know.
unfortunately, don't think we're going to see him again in the NCAA, but should be fun to see what him and Vanderbilt have in store for this season. That's a look at your 2025 Vanderbilt Commodores. Of course, we're going to continue to cover them and all these SEC teams throughout the season. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to Southeast Sports Fans, and we'll see y'all next time.